Mission failed. The system abandoned me in this world. Meanwhile, my target, Willow, got engaged to her true love. She even humiliated me in front of the media, saying that it was my relentless pursuit that kept her from being with the one she loved. Everyone thought I would keep simping for Willow. And even the system believed I would go mad from unrequited love and eventually take my own life. But instead, I stood in front of the window of my company's CEO office, curved my lips into a smile, and said, "What a joke. For 4 years, I was Willow's simp, doing everything to complete the task. Willow, spoiled by my devotion, treated me like a dog. Now, I'm free again. Do I still love her? Now that the system's no longer holding me back. The weather's getting cold. Let Liu Corporation collapse." Chapter 1. For years after pursuing Willow, she got engaged to someone else. To humiliate me, she had Liu's father pay me an outrageous breakup fee of 800 million. Yes, 800 million. An absurdly high amount. Martin Liu sent me a message saying, "I'll give you 800 million, but leave my daughter forever." At a live press conference, she claimed to be a modern woman who should be with whoever she wants, saying she wouldn't give up on true love just because she had a boyfriend. The system informed me that my pursuit mission had failed, and I would remain in this world forever. Soon after, the system detached from my body, abandoning me as its host. But I wasn't sad at all. Instead, I looked at Willow on TV, smiling sweetly, and whispered to myself, "Now that the system's gone, it's time for me to act. The weather's getting colder. Let's bring down Liu Group." The system thought I had fallen for Willow. It assumed that once it stopped controlling me, I'd go mad with unrequited love and end up killing myself for her. But it never expected that, after leaving, I'd immediately start planning to destroy the Liu family. It's laughable. I had been Willow's simp for 4 years. Completing my mission, she became arrogant, treating me like a dog. Now that I was finally free, did she think I'd still love her? I'm not even going to bother with Willow. True to her word, Willow's assistant informed me just half an hour after the press conference that the 800 million had been transferred to my private account and I should sign and confirm the payment. The assistant was nervous, fearing I might go crazy in the moment. I smiled and said, "I'll sign it right away. Make sure you confirm the transfer with the bank. 800 million, not a penny less." The assistant froze for a moment after seeing my calm demeanor, then immediately handed me the paperwork. I signed quickly. Once the assistant left with the documents, I checked my phone and saw a message from Willow. It said, "Seriously, George, you really took the money? You have no backbone at all." I scoffed at the message, then quickly typed a reply. "How much is backbone worth? Why wouldn't I take the 800 million that fell from the sky? Do you think I'm as stupid as you?" After sending the message, I swiftly deleted her WeChat while she was still typing. Willow, the purebred idiot, thought I wouldn't take the money and would keep chasing her. She was sure I'd continue to beg her after rejecting the 800 million, but who knew I'd flip the script, take her money, and run. Laughing at the huge breakup fee that had just been deposited, I said, "With this 800 million, let's bring Willow and the Liu family down together." Chapter 2. Willow had previously promised Liu's father that I wouldn't take the money. She claimed the whole thing was just for publicity, getting attention for the Liu family, pushing them into the spotlight, and using the breakup to humiliate the Wang family. She believed the 800 million would eventually be returned to the Liu family intact. But then I stepped in, and without hesitation, took the money. Now, the hot search was dominated by the headline CEO drama, "Take the money, leave my daughter," and Liu's father no longer had the face to ask me for the money back. And I, with the bank card as my pillow, slept the best night I've had since coming into this world. At 8 in the morning, I woke up on time, and the gates of the Wang family mansion were crowded with reporters waiting for my interview. The entertainment industry's top actor and Liu's daughter were involved in this dramatic love story, and naturally, they needed me, the failed third party, to play the supporting role. So, as soon as I stepped out, a young female reporter, with a provocative look, interviewed me. "Mr. George, what do you think of Miss Liu's engagement with Mr. Ito? I heard that Liu's father gave you 800 million to make you break up with her. Would you continue to pursue Miss Liu for the sake of love?" I was just about to get into my car when I heard her question. I closed the car door that I had just opened, leaned against the luxury car, and smiled. "First of all, I wish Miss Liu and Mr. Ito a happy marriage. I, George, know how to let go and move on. I'm not interested in someone else's wife. Secondly, your second question is really funny. 800 million yuan or love? Only a fool would choose love, right?" As I was about to get in, the reporter suddenly shoved me against the car. She said, "So, Mr. Wang, are you admitting that you're not deeply in love with Miss Liu? You're just a greedy, materialistic man, huh?" The part of the car that protruded hurt my back, and my good mood in the morning evaporated. Looking at the relentless reporter in front of me, I sneered and said, "Your questions are really funny. If I say I won't keep chasing Willow, you'll call me a greedy, materialistic man. If I say I'll continue to pursue Willow, you'll call me a simp, shameless, ruining someone else's marriage. You've got both sides covered, haven't you? What school did you go to? Is this what your journalism professor taught you? I took off my sunglasses and fixed her with a sharp gaze. She looked guilty under my stare, and as she tried to say something, I interrupted her with a cold laugh. Are you a paparazzi from Hound Dog Media? Forgot to tell you, your company's big boss now is me. From today, you don't need to come to work anymore. Didn't you like being Makoto's dog? Let Makoto take you in then. With that, I pushed the stunned reporter aside, opened the luxury car door, and left. What I didn't know was that other reporters who were live streaming the event had recorded my entire exchange with the paparazzi. The comments section exploded, and netizens were shocked, flooding the comments. Did George take the wrong medicine? Why is he not being the loyal simp today, and suddenly acting like a CEO? Some people said, I don't think so. This might be his real personality. As the only son of Wong Group, how could he possibly be a simp? Others said, exactly. He probably lowered his status before to pursue Willow. Now he's acting so cool. He's so handsome. Watching my confident and charming appearance, the comments quickly shifted from people expecting drama to them praising my true nature. I drove straight to the Wong Group building, ready to go to work. Before, I had always thought that once my mission was over, I would leave this world, and the Wong family would no longer have anything to do with me. So, at Wong Group, I was just a figurehead, not involved in any decision-making. Now that I was staying in this world, I was tied to the Wong family like a grasshopper on a string. So naturally, I had to take more responsibility. Before, my father saw that I was obsessed with Willow and had no time for Wong Group, so he had my paternal cousin step in to manage things. Now, I took the initiative, and it made my father breathe a sigh of relief. When I reached the CEO's office, I handed over the work to my paternal cousin, who rolled her eyes and said, now that you're not a simp anymore, you'd better start working properly. Okay, I'm leaving. If you need anything, just let me know. I nodded, not being polite, and handed her an invitation. Actually, I need you to do me a favor. My paternal cousin looked speechless. I continued. There's a party tonight at Liu's. They want to take back the 800 million they gave me and try to humiliate me. I need you to come with me and scold them. She frowned and said, what's wrong with the Liu family? Because of the 800 million, they've made you the target of online criticism. People are calling you a love scammer and a materialistic man who only got together with Miss Liu for the money. Now that the storm's passed, they want the money back. How shameless. I'll go with you. Let's see if I don't tear them apart. Chapter 3. My paternal cousin kept her word. That evening, she wore a wine-red dress and walked arm in arm with me, dressed in a sharp suit, confidently attending the party. Willow, on the other hand, was with her fiancé, Makoto. When she saw how radiant I looked, a flicker of displeasure crossed her eyes. My father had retired early, leaving the management of the Wong family business to me and my paternal cousin. So, as soon as we appeared, we were immediately surrounded by the bosses and clients, exchanging pleasantries. My paternal cousin and I worked the room, quickly turning what would have been a dull atmosphere into something lively and energetic. Meanwhile, Willow, the supposed main character, found herself sidelined. Fuming, she walked over and, with a cold expression, mocked me. George, didn't I tell you to take the money and get lost? You're walking in here like you own the place. Are you still holding on to old feelings and planning to pester me? The atmosphere around us turned awkwardly cold. The boss who had been talking to me stepped back tactfully. I held my wine glass and feigned surprise, looking at her. Excuse me, didn't Martin Liu, Mr. Liu himself, send me an invitation to come? Who do you think you are, telling me to get lost? Is this the attitude of the little rich girl at home, throwing a tantrum in public? At my biting words, several bosses who didn't get along with the Liu family scoffed. My paternal cousin even held back a laugh. Willow froze for a moment. She didn't expect me to call her out so publicly, especially since I had been a doormat for her for 4 years, putting up with her every whim. Seeing me with such an imposing demeanor, she stammered, George, did you take the wrong medicine? Why are you speaking to me like this? I raised an eyebrow and smirked. Willow, I think you took the wrong medicine. You've got a fiancé, but you're still letting others simp for you. What's the deal? You like playing games? Just as she was about to argue, I cut her off. If that's not what you meant, then you're living in a fantasy. I'm the rightful heir to the Wong family. I was invited to this party, and now you want me to grovel to you, a little nobody with no money, no power, and whose only claim to luxury is your father's card. When did Liu family get so bold? Your father wouldn't dare speak to me like that. Who do you think you are? Do you want to die? Willow was about to retort but immediately shrank back when she heard my words. Makoto, sensing the tense atmosphere, humbly stepped forward, smiling weakly. George, I know it's all because of me that you and Willow have these issues. It's my fault. If you want to blame anyone, blame me. Don't blame Willow. All right. Seeing her fiancé defend her, Willow looked at Makoto with grateful eyes and said, Makoto, don't apologize to him. He's not worth it. Makoto gazed back at Willow, his eyes full of affection. He said grandly, if it helps Willow and George make peace, I don't mind admitting I was wrong. Watching them gaze lovingly at each other made me feel disgusted, and I was too lazy to speak. I was about to pull my paternal cousin away when a well-dressed lady from the side stopped me. Turning around, I saw it was Mrs. Chan, a close friend of the Wang family. Mrs. Chan looked at Makoto with disdain, and in a tone of someone much older, she frowned and said, Makoto, although you're an award-winning actor, this isn't a film set. Stop with the performance and speak plainly. There's no need to slander others behind their backs. She then turned to Mrs. Liu, who had just appeared, and loudly said, Mrs. Liu, I told you, actors may look good, but they're useless when it counts. Now look, he's acting like a clown in front of everyone. Mrs. Liu's face darkened, but out of respect for the Liu family's reputation, she didn't scold Makoto in public. Instead, she shot a harsh glare at Willow and muttered in a low voice, shameless, what are you still doing here? Mrs. Chan's family was powerful, and they were giants in a city's construction materials industry, far too important for the Liu family to afford offending. Thus, Mrs. Liu could only smile awkwardly, apologizing. Sorry for causing such a scene today. Mrs. Chan smiled brightly and responded, though Miss Liu has poor taste in men, she's a kind-hearted person. She even gave George 800 million. What a real-life goddess. With just a few words, Mrs. Chan made Mrs. Liu feel embarrassed enough that she dropped the topic of the breakup money. Mrs. Liu awkwardly laughed, told everyone to enjoy the evening, and quickly exited. Watching Mrs. Liu leave in such an uncomfortable state, Mrs. Chan couldn't help but scoff. She still has the nerve to cause trouble for our George. Doesn't she know her own worth? Thankfully, George woke up before it was too late. If he had married into Liu family, we'd be suffering right now. I chuckled and added, exactly. Makoto can't compare to my brother-in-law. Sis, when are you and brother-in-law getting married? My sister blushed, and with a shy smile, she said, we're getting married this November. Mom, thanks for sticking up for me. Mrs. Chan, with a delighted expression, smiled at her daughter-in-law and chatted with her. Meanwhile, I walked over to the outdoor balcony, lost in thought about what to do next. Chapter 4. To pursue Willow. I had spent quite a lot of effort over the past 4 years. Back then, Willow was studying abroad. To get closer to her, I specifically applied to the same country's university. The reason I didn't apply to the same school was that I didn't want to end up at some obscure university like she did. At that time, the Liu family was still new money. Willow's grades were poor, and it was I who helped her write her papers, allowing her to graduate. Later, when we both returned to China, she told me that her true love had grown up in poverty and his biggest dream was to open his own studio. To win her favor, I went through the trouble of finding a location and managing the business, eventually opening a company for Makoto. Then, Willow told me that Makoto's real dream was acting, but the Liu family had no connections in the entertainment industry and asked me to help him out. At that point, I was already about to slap Willow, but for the sake of completing the mission, I swallowed my anger and helped turn Makoto into the hottest idol in the entertainment world. I thought that, given our families had a verbal agreement of marriage, Willow was just an outsider, and she wouldn't be able to stir up much trouble. Who would have thought that Willow, this brain-dead girl, would really want to marry him? And that Liu father and Liu mother would actually condone her actions. I was furious, slamming my fist against the railing. The protruding pattern instantly caused a sharp pain in my hand. A voice, tinged with laughter, spoke, Mr. Wang, be careful with your hand. I turned around to see a coldly beautiful young woman, with a smile playing on her lips. She appeared to be in her early 20s, dressed in a high-end black evening gown, exuding the grace of a refined lady. I furrowed my brow slightly, but addressed her politely, Miss Su. I don't think there's any cooperation between the Wang family and the Su family. What brings you to chat with me? Anna smiled, shaking her finger slightly, and looked me in the eyes with sincerity. Just because the Wang family and Su family didn't cooperate in the past doesn't mean we won't in the future. Mr. Wang, I remember that the partnership between the Liu family and the Wang family didn't end because of Willow's engagement. Since you seem to dislike the Liu family so much, why not consider cooperating with us, the Su family? Looking into her eyes, which sparkled with a teasing gleam, I skeptically asked, Miss Su, you seem too kind. Surely, you have something to gain from this. Just as Anna was about to speak, Willow suddenly appeared and interrupted with a shout. Well, George, no wonder you changed so quickly. I thought you were seeing someone else. Frowning, I looked at Willow and said, no, you're the one who's engaged. How about you go away and stop acting like a jealous girlfriend? If you're going to start a scene, just leave. After I spoke, Mrs. Liu, who had heard the commotion, rushed over and pulled Willow away, apologizing to Anna with a smile. Anna rolled her eyes in impatience and waved Mrs. Liu off. I glanced disdainfully at the obsequious Mrs. Liu and immediately agreed to Anna's proposal for cooperation. The resources I had now could severely damage the Liu family's prospects, ensuring they couldn't rise in the next 20 years. However, I didn't want to drive them to bankruptcy completely, but the humiliation I had suffered over the past 4 years had strengthened my resolve to see the Liu family fall. Anna, noticing my furrowed brow, smiled and said, "I can see Mr. Wang doesn't want to stay here any longer. I'm not too fond of the atmosphere either. Why don't we leave? Would you mind escorting me home?" Seeing Willow glaring at me with an angry face from a distance, I felt a wave of irritation. I swiftly pulled Anna into my arms, gave my sister a quick nod, and left with Anna in the luxury car. Chapter 5. When Anna and I were on our way home, paparazzi managed to snap a few photos of us. A week after the party, the photos were posted online by some gossip accounts. The rumors said that I had already been seeing Anna while I was still with Willow, and that I had intentionally made Liu father force me to leave, in order to extort 800 million from them. The comment section was flooded with discussions. Some said Anna and I made a perfect couple, while others called me a scumbag who was only after money and emotions. There were also some more rational commenters, pointing out that as the heir to the Wang family, with assets far greater than the Liu family's, there was no way I would do such a thing. If anyone were to do it, it might be someone like Makoto, born of humble beginnings, a so-called phoenixman. The situation soon involved the current best actor in the entertainment industry, and before long, Makoto's fans arrived at the battlefield, fiercely battling with netizens. I sat in my office, sneering at the gossip accounts who had posted the photos. Makoto's methods were truly amateurish. Did he really think that by hiring some people to take a few photos and spreading rumors about me, he could bring me down? Or did he believe that I, just like other actors or celebrities, would crumble from a mere scandal? The so-called best actor certainly didn't have much of a brain. I coldly laughed and dialed the internal line for Liu Corporation, asking the head of the PR department to come up. Before long, another gossip account leaked a new story, claiming to have evidence of a certain male actor, named Ito, bullying students in high school, and offering to take 20 million in exchange for silence. Since this account had previously exposed several true scandals involving top-tier stars, the topic of Ito bullying in school quickly surged to the top of trending searches, with everyone guessing who it could be. Some guessed it was Makoto, only to be immediately rebutted by his fans. Our brother has been an exemplary student since childhood and worked hard to become the best actor. He had no time to bully anyone in school. Others said, "Exactly. I seriously suspect you're fans of a rival. There are plenty of male actors with the surname Ito in the industry, so why single out our brother Makoto? How ridiculous. Now that we see Makoto is about to win the rich and beautiful girl and reach the peak of his life, you all want to throw mud at him. Go away." The netizens who were rebuked fell silent, realizing they had made wild assumptions and had been roasted by the fans. Little did they know, they had actually guessed right. 5 hours later, the gossip account, seeing that Makoto's studio hadn't contacted him, immediately announced that they would expose more details. They revealed that the bullied student, after transferring schools, had suffered severe depression due to the long-term bullying, eventually jumping to her death. The public was shocked. This was an indirect case of bullying leading to death. It was now a matter of human life, and more people began to speculate about who the bully could be. I sat back in my office, casually chatting with Anna, not bothered by it at all. The young lady seemed to have gone a bit mad recently. Ever since she mentioned collaborating with me at the Liu family's house, she had been coming to Liu Corporation every day to chat with me. So, when Makoto stormed into my office, I was still leisurely discussing a puzzle with Anna. Seeing Makoto, who had always been polite and well-mannered, now glaring at me, I found it rather amusing. He furiously asked, "George, you bastard, what's your game? Why did you let the gossip accounts leak those rumors about me?" I remained calm, not even flinching as I continued to put the final piece into the puzzle. I was used to this. I finished the puzzle and stood up. Makoto had always had a bad temper, and back when I helped him start his company to please Willow, I had taken a lot of his nonsense. Now, without the system's constraints, it was time for me to settle the score and get my revenge for the humiliation I had suffered. I turned around, calmly picked up the coffee on my desk, and smiled at him. "Mr. Ito, care for a cup of coffee to soothe your throat?" Makoto's anger grew even more intense, as everyone knew that he was allergic to coffee. Seeing him on the verge of exploding, I stopped teasing him, sitting back on the desk with my coffee, smiling as I said, "What do you mean? You made a mess back then, and I cleaned it up for you. I made you famous. Now, I don't want to help you anymore. I want to ruin your career. Any problems with that?" Makoto was speechless. because he indeed started out under my Wang Corporation's entertainment company, but after becoming famous, he had terminated his contract with us and went off to start his own career. I had also helped him handle the school bullying incident. The student he had bullied committed suicide, and when her brother came to collect her belongings, he discovered that his sister didn't die from stress caused by studies, but from bullying by Makoto. At the time, her brother came looking for him, and Makoto's idol drama was airing. Willow had called me impatiently from a bar, asking me to take care of it. I did resolve the situation, but they didn't know how I did it. Now, with my mission failed, it was time to tear my mask off and confront Makoto directly. Looking at Makoto's furious face, I smiled and said, "If you don't want me to expose your school bullying, it's simple, 20 million. I already took all the Liu family's cash as my severance pay, so you'll have to pay out of your own pocket. Besides, only Willow and I know about the bullying. Your mother-in-law doesn't know, does she? Do you think she'll still let such a scum marry her daughter when she finds out?" I smiled as I watched his trembling hands. 5 minutes later, Makoto stormed out of the office, and I reminded him with a grin, "Don't think you can settle things with the victim's family privately. You probably can't even find them now." My tone turned cold as I added, "The best way for you is to pay up honestly." Makoto collided with his assistant, who had just entered, and left in a hurry. Anna was about to speak but was interrupted by me raising my hand. I smiled and turned to the assistant, asking, 20 million. Half as compensation for your sister, the other half I'll make Makoto pay for with blood. The assistant, or rather, the brother of the bullied student, looked up, tears in his eyes, and bitterly smiled. 20 million plus a life. This delayed justice. My sister should be happy about it. Seeing his sorrowful expression, my mood darkened, and I sighed deeply. I had originally planned for the mission to succeed, and before leaving this world, I would arrange for him to become the vice director of Wang's procurement department. Years later, he would rise through the ranks and challenge Makoto. This was the plan I had proposed to him when Willow asked me to handle the matter. He had agreed without hesitation. But now, with my mission a failure, this would happen earlier than expected. At least the wheel of karma keeps turning, and no matter how much money or power Makoto has, he can't escape the consequences. The victim's soul can now rest in peace. Chapter 6. After comforting him for a while, the assistant's mood had calmed down considerably, and with a forced smile, he returned to his work. I turned around and saw Anna leaning against the sofa with a teasing smile, saying, "I didn't expect it, Mr. Wang. So young, yet you've already mastered all 36 stratagems for dealing with people." I shot her a glance and tossed the file that the assistant had brought me in her direction, saying, "Miss Su, please hurry up and review the contract. Once you're done, sign it and leave." Anna pouted, shaking her head, but she didn't stop moving her hands. Quickly flipping through the document, she pointed out a few issues in the contract and started discussing them with me. Makoto, after thinking it through, still valued his marriage with Willow. In the end, he decided to pay me the 20 million, but, in order to maintain his image, he had spent almost all of his salary on luxury cars and expensive items to maintain appearances, leaving him with hardly any money. With no other choice, he had to sell the company I had set up for him, and coincidentally, it was sold for exactly 20 million. On Monday morning, I grinned as I saw the 20 million deposited into my bank account, and turned to the assistant beside me with a smile. "Since you've chosen the company over the 20 million, you'll need to manage it well. Now that you have full control, the company will give you an annual dividend of 500,000. You need to live your life well too." The assistant nodded, and we exchanged a look and smiled. That's right. I had arranged for someone to buy Makoto's company with the 20 million. It had been my idea and effort from the start, so I wasn't going to let Makoto take credit for my work. Now, handing it over to the assistant was also a way to atone for Makoto's actions. After receiving the money, the gossip accounts kept their word and stopped leaking any further information. With no more gossip to stir the pot, the crowd dispersed. In the end, only Makoto was left hurt by this whole affair. The 20 million bought a moment of peace, and Makoto paid the price for his actions. As for Liu Mother, she had no idea about any of this. As a rising star in a city, Liu Mother, in order to flaunt her status, decided to host a grand banquet, inviting all the elites of a city. As the head of Wang Corporation, I had no choice but to attend the wedding. However, as her ex-boyfriend, attending this wedding felt somewhat inappropriate. Before I could hesitate too much, Anna's invitation arrived. She snuck into my office just before closing time and, by the time I was about to leave, practically forced me to accompany her to try on dresses. I frowned at the mirror, seeing Anna dressed to the nines, and said, "Wait a minute, this is a bit too extravagant, isn't it? Whose wedding is this? Are we really doing this? What if people start talking?" Anna turned her waist with a smile and said, "With the 800 million you took, and now with Wang Corporation thriving under your leadership, You're already the center of attention wherever you go. People will talk either way. Rather than that, why not bring me along and let them talk even more? I thought about it for a second and nodded, agreeing with her. After Anna finished trying on her dress, she asked me to help her choose shoes and jewelry. After a whole series of fittings, Anna was dazzlingly beautiful. On the day of the wedding, Anna, wearing an extravagant gown, took my arm and smiled as we greeted the media waiting at the door. When Willow saw Anna, who was dressed even more stunningly than herself, her face turned red with embarrassment. Anna and I exchanged a glance and smiled happily. With that smile, all the humiliation I had endured over the past 4 years from this pair of dogged lovers vanished in an instant. As expected, the trending topics that day were lively. Not only were there photos of Willow and Makoto, but also of Anna and me, with Anna holding my arm and greeting the reporters in her luxurious attire. The top trending photos, aside from Makoto and Willow's wedding dress shots, were the ones of Anna and me, showing us laughing and greeting the press. Everyone said that Anna and I were a perfect match, both heirs to powerful families and well-suited. We looked much more compatible than Willow and Makoto. Of course, there were Makoto's fans throwing a tantrum in the comments, but they couldn't stop the majority of netizens, who praised us while criticizing Makoto and Willow. The appearance of Anna and me together led to speculations that Liu Corporation and Liu Corporation might be planning a merger, or even a family alliance. As a result, both Liu and Liu Corporation stocks saw a slight rise. Chapter 7. In order to surprise the Liu family and Willow, Anna mischievously scheduled the signing ceremony for the collaboration between Liu and Liu Corporations an hour after their wedding. After this signing, the cooperation between the Liu and Liu families would be completely terminated, and the official partnership between the Liu and Liu families would begin. The conditions Liu offered were extremely generous, including sharing several key patents with Liu Corporation for free. Liu's executives immediately agreed to my proposal without hesitation, choosing to end their partnership with the Liu family. After all, the previous collaboration with the Liu family had brought no benefits to Liu, and it had felt like constantly pouring money and connections into a bottomless pit, with no return in sight. At the negotiation table, Anna didn't even bother to change out of her wedding dress. When the final signature was placed on the document, Anna smiled and exchanged a glance with me. She said, "From now on, Liu and Liu are tied together like ants on a single rope." I smiled as I took her hand and replied, "Then let's wish for a fruitful partnership between Liu and Liu." The official Weibo accounts of Liu and Liu Corporations released the news of the signed agreement immediately, with a photo of Anna and me locking eyes placed at the top of the post. Thanks to the buzz surrounding Willow's wedding, our collaboration quickly hit the trending topics, attracting countless onlookers. People began to compare Anna and me with the newlyweds, and as always, comparisons created criticism. Netizens quickly started to comment, "George and Anna make such a perfect match. I can feel the powerful synergy just from their handshake. It's like a battle of equals. Right, they have such a strong couple vibe. Compared to them, Willow and Makoto are so off. Makoto looks like a clown, all show with no substance, and Willow seems like a fallen rich girl." Anna, sitting in my office chair, read aloud the comments from the trending topics, her peachy eyes blinking as she smiled and leaned closer to me, asking, "See, they all think we're a perfect match." I was focused on a contract with the Chan family when I heard her. Without looking up, I slapped a contract on the desk and said, "Miss Sue, if you're so free, why don't you help me review this contract?" Anna pouted and replied with mock innocence, "I'm just a rich young lady, and you don't pity me at all. You want me to work, and on top of that, it's legal work. How would I know how to do that?" I didn't even raise my head. "Don't think I don't know you graduated from the law school at Cambridge. Since you're in my office, you'll have to do the work properly." Seeing her attempts to charm me fail, Anna finally begrudgingly started working. Amidst my busy schedule, I looked up and saw Anna resting her chin on her hand, deep in thought. For a moment, I was entranced. When Anna wasn't speaking, she really was quite beautiful, with a classical, gentle air about her. But just as quickly, Anna noticed me looking up at her and tilted her head toward me. Before she could start talking again, I emotionlessly threw a stack of files at her, successfully silencing her once more. Chapter 8. When the Liu family realized I was about to end our cooperation, they didn't initially react. They thought their company was mature enough that losing Wang's support wouldn't be a big deal. At worst, they'd lose some money, but when Wang finally assessed the joint projects and brought our team back to the company, they were horrified to find that, over the years, 2/3 of Liu's projects had come from Wang. And even the new clients they had acquired in recent years were introduced by Wang. The profits that Liu enjoyed were actually the result of Liu Corporation's discounts, which had allowed them to thrive in the market. Without Wang's support, Liu's family had no power, no influence, and in the competitive world of a city's elite, they were nothing. The lack of Wang's proprietary technology caused multiple issues with their projects, and many clients, dissatisfied with the progress, terminated their contracts and turned to Liu Corporation instead. Even the finance department had reported to Mr. Liu that the company's accounts were draining, with no new income coming in. At this rate, the company could only last another 3 months, and all of Liu's liquid assets had been used to pay for my breakup fee. In other words, unless Liu found some new investors or partners, they were on the verge of bankruptcy. Now, the Liu family was desperate. Mr. Liu, along with Mrs. Liu and their daughter, came to my office to apologize, but they were stopped by security at the gate. I stood in my CEO office, looking down at the anxious Liu family below, and sneered. Anna, standing beside me, handed me a cup of coffee and hummed. "How does it feel now?" "Pretty satisfying, right?" I took the cup, sipped it, and closed my eyes slightly, savoring the rich aroma. I replied. "It's satisfying, but not enough." Anna laughed and turned to walk away. "Not enough? Well, Sue still has some leftover bits from the Liu family. Do you want them?" I raised an eyebrow and met her gaze. "I'd love to, the more, the better." So, 1 week after the end of Wang and Liu's partnership, Liu was exposed for tax evasion. At the same time, a large safety hazard was discovered in one of their independent projects, which was immediately shut down. Liu family was fined heavily, and their stock plummeted. Anna and I, with a little more maneuvering, succeeded in driving Liu family into bankruptcy. Just the day after Liu's bankruptcy, the news of Makoto's school bullying was exposed. And under the gaze of many, Makoto was escorted out of the Liu mansion by the police, handcuffed. The shine of the handcuffs illuminating the tragic path of the girl who had fallen into severe depression and taken her own life because of his bullying. 1 week after Liu's bankruptcy, the court began to liquidate their assets to cover the huge debts the Liu family owed. I was sitting on the couch in my apartment when I saw Willow's heartbroken face on the news, her assets being auctioned off. I couldn't help but laugh. Anna, wearing matching couple pajamas, snuggled up to me and pointed at Liu's mansion, saying, "Darling, how about we buy this house and hold our wedding here? What do you think?" I laughed. "You're too bad," Anna snorted. "Two different types of people can't share the same bed. There's no way you didn't enjoy seeing Willow like that." As she spoke, she straddled my lap. At that moment, I stopped laughing and said, all right, I admit it. I'll buy it. But let's take a break first." She pouted. "Since we got married, you've only wanted me less than 10 times. What's wrong with you?" I stared at her, speechless. "We just got our marriage certificate yesterday. Can you give me a break?" Epilogue. It wasn't until later that I found out. Anna had liked me for a long time. Our meeting was no coincidence. The truth came out during a family dinner at the Wang household. I attended with Anna, and my paternal cousin and her husband were there as well. When my paternal cousin's husband saw Anna holding my hand, he burst out laughing and said, "Congrats, Junior, you finally found happiness." Anna tucked her hair behind her ear, then linked her arm with mine and sighed. "It was tough, but at least the ending is good." They clinked glasses, leaving me and my paternal cousin bewildered, exchanging confused glances. After her husband left, I asked Anna, "What was that about?" "I didn't get it at all." A trace of grievance flashed across Anna's beautiful face. She said, "This goes back to 5 years ago, when I met a charming, handsome man in the scenic city of Cambridge." Before she could continue, I quickly covered her mouth and said, "Stop making up stories. Let's just have a normal conversation." That night, after much effort, I pieced together the real story from Anna's evasive words. At that time, I had applied to Cambridge Law School through my own efforts. Due to the overwhelming academic pressure, I was busy all the time. Meanwhile, Willow, that pretentious girl, began creating problems for me, asking me to write all sorts of things for her. I had just finished my assignments and was sitting in a cafe near King's College, trying to enjoy a brief respite, when Willow sent me a message saying she was going out to a club and didn't feel like writing her paper. She asked me to help her out, in the spirit of finishing tasks quickly to go home sooner. I cursed and opened my laptop to write her paper in a hurry. Just then, Anna walked in and saw an Asian guy grinding his teeth, furiously typing away on the keyboard, muttering to himself. She approached, and when she heard the familiar language, she realized what I was saying. "Willow, that pretentious bitch, thinks I'm her tool. She's out partying, while I'm stuck writing her paper." "Fine, I'll write it, but every word I write will curse her to live 1 less year. I'll write her to death." Anna covered her mouth and laughed quietly, ordering a coffee, and then sat next to me, watching me angrily type for half an hour. After finishing the paper, I sighed with relief, took a sip of my coffee, but it had gone cold. I cursed again and left in a huff. Later, she bumped into me on the bridge over the Cam River, where I was on the phone, visibly angry. At that time, I had been running around trying to start a company for Makoto, negotiating with clients, arguing with employees, and still getting nothing in return. Seeing me curse so vividly, She was actually a little moved. She said she had never seen a man curse so creatively, going for an hour without repeating a single word. As someone who loved to talk, she thought maybe if she ever got bored, she could have a cursing contest with me to vent her frustrations. That's how she got drawn in and started following me around. But she didn't dare be too direct, just dropping little hints of affection. Until one day, a professor asked her, "Anna, it seems like you have someone you like." Anna bit her lip and replied, "Yes, professor, but he seems a bit slow. He hasn't even noticed me." The professor, seeing her careful attitude, sighed and said, "Anna, I know that girls from your country may be more reserved, but I want to tell you this: if you fall in love, don't easily give up the opportunity. Being proactive might lead to some regret, but hesitation could lead to a lifetime of regret." But Anna shook her head sadly. She couldn't express her feelings in that situation. I was puzzled and asked, "So, you waited for me for 4 years like a quiet little cabbage, all the while watching me chase after Willow?" Anna's face flushed, and she snorted, "Not just that, I even saw you putting all your heart into Makoto's business." I frowned and gestured for her to stop revealing my embarrassing history. Anna shook her head and continued, "Later, my liking for you became the unspoken secret of the law school, but you were always so busy that you didn't have time for love. After I graduated and returned home to take over the family business, my first independent business deal was a negotiation with a very difficult client, which I managed to close thanks to Anna's help. She had asked Sue's father to raise the price, which allowed me to secure the deal. From then on, my father began training me as the heir to the family business, and Anna was secretly happy for me. When Willow and Makoto got engaged, Anna thought I would be heartbroken, and she planned to comfort me and seize the opportunity to become the Wong family's wife. But to her surprise, I quickly adjusted my mindset, and at Liu's family banquet, I looked like I was ready to take down everyone. So, Anna wisely changed her approach, decided to team up with me, and take down the Liu family. I gladly agreed. And the wheels of fate began to turn. Anna and I became more connected, and she started appearing more frequently in my life. Finally, after 5 long years, Anna and I were truly together. I also bought Liu's mansion, which had gone bankrupt, and held our wedding there. At the wedding, I knelt on one knee, and with the witness of our parents and teachers, I began my new life with the girl who had secretly loved me for 5 years. We started our journey of happiness together.